Hey everybody, I'm Daryl. I'm a multi-OM for sweetFrog. Today I'm going to be showing you how to clean our machines. Without having our machines properly cleaned, we don't have a good product. Without having a good product, we don't have customers. Without customers, you don't have a job. So it's very important that you know properly how to clean our machines. We have to make sure our machines are cleaned every 7 days. Not all of them cleaned within 1 day, but one machine per day. Some of your locations may have more than 7 machines. I've been in some locations where they have 8 machines, and I've also been in locations where they have 10. That does mean you're gonna have to do 2 per day on some days, and that's okay. You just have to make sure that we're cleaning our machines in proper times. When I say a proper time, you don't want to be cleaning a machine between the hours of, like, say for example, 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Those tend to be our busiest times. During those times, we have kids coming out of school, we have parents off of work, and that's when they're going to be coming into our locations. So we don't want to have a machine down for cleaning our maintenance. So it's generally best to clean a machine in the beginning of your shift, or if need be, at the end, towards the end of your shift. We don't want to have staff clocking overtime hours because they're staying after work to clean a machine. There's no need for that. Your OM, or you the OM, depending on who's watching this, should be cleaning them during our slow hours. As you can see here on the back of the machine, we have a brief description of the date it needs to be cleaned on, the date it was last cleaned, and the date we don't want to fill the machine the night before. Today's date is the 13th. I'm not too sure when you're going to be seeing this, but this has got to be cleaned today. So the night before, it should have said down here on the 12th, we don't want to fill this. At the end of the night, everybody tends to fill the machine, so they're ready for your morning staff. We also have the flavors on the back of the machine that coincide with the side of the hopper that they're in. One quick note, you might notice behind me that I have the other machines unplugged. The only reason they are unplugged is for noise while I'm taping this. That's not a common practice. We never unplug our machines, nor do we ever shut them off. One of the things we should have in all of our locations is a disassembly and cleaning guide provided by Stoelting. If you don't have one of these in your store, please tell your OM, or you the OM can get a hold of your DM to get a copy of one of these. If you're one of the people that are watching this right now and I'm still here with the company, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll make a copy of this and send this to you. This is a very important guide. Everything I'm going to talk about here today is right here on this. I personally keep this on my walk-ins. That way my staff can grab one of these if they haven't seen this video or they don't remember how to clean the machines properly. That way it's a good reference guide to go to. In almost all of our locations, our machines can be turned around for an easy cleaning process. Most of our machines are glycol-based, water-based, or air-cooled. Here in my Horseheads location, all of my machines are glycol-based. What's glycol-based? Glycol is just basically a big radiator for our machines. They have 2 hoses going into the machines. You have one inlet hose, and then you have an outlet hose. These hoses go up to the big cooler unit up on the roof of the building. Your water-based machines are going to be pretty much the same exact way, but you won't have a cooler on the top of the building. What you're going to have is just an inlet line from your main water from the city, and then you're going to have an outlet hose from the machine that's going to be dumping the water out. As you see, I have the machine turned around, and I'm going to start the cleaning process now. Myself, the first thing I like to do is I like to pull the regulators out. When I'm pulling the regulators out, I prefer to use a bucket. Putting the regulators within a bucket makes it a little easier getting them over to your sink, and you're not getting product spilled all over your floor. After you have the regulators pulled out, what you're going to want to do is you're going to come to the front of the machine. Some machines like mine have the metal panels that fold up and down. The other machines that you may have are going to have a magnetic strip that cover up the front of this. If you don't have one of those, I strongly suggest that you get a hold of somebody to make sure that happens. We don't want to have a bare machine with the panel exposed to the public, because we all know kids like to touch things, and we don't want a random kid coming up and turning our machines off during the day. Now, when you get to this part, what you're going to notice is that your machine's either going to say sleep, depending on if you've come in early in the morning, the machine's not already starting to freeze, or it's going to say ready to serve. At that point, what you're going to want to do is you're going to turn the machine off. You're turning the machine off at the barrels, not the whole unit main power off. We're going to leave the main power on. After you have both sides turned off, you're going to press the clean button. What that's doing is it's going to get the auger turning, and it's turning off the barrel, and it's going to keep the, I think it turns the hopper off as well. When I say turn off, it's turning the freezing units off on those. After you've turned that off, we're going to let it sit for a little bit, and we're going to let it to get the product to melt down a little bit. So that's going to make it easier for it to pour out. Sometimes you don't have to wait. If time is an issue, you can go ahead and just start dumping the product right now. Okay, so now that we have all the product drained out of it, sometimes what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to save the product. If it's product that's been within a machine that has constantly been replenished, such as it's something that hasn't been sitting in the machine for a long time, like a very popular flavor, then you can reuse the yogurt that you had in your hoppers. But if it's yogurt that's been sitting in the machine for a long time, not very popular, you find yourself not having to fill it within a couple of days, myself personally, I find that yogurt to be really beat up and bad, so I end up discarding that product when I go to clean a machine. But like I said, if it's something that it's a popular flavor and you've been replenishing it a lot, go ahead and save that, put it in some buckets, and then place it in your walk-in or your refrigerators. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to start rinsing out your solids out of the machine. I'm currently using a hose. In some of your locations, you guys won't have hoses available to you. You'll just have buckets, and you have to fill those with water and use them. Also, keep in mind, you're going to want to use cool water, not hot water. Definitely not hot water. Now what I'm getting ready to do is I'm mixing up the sanitizer and cleaner. This is from Stirasheen. You should have this set up on your wall somewhere within your kitchen area. If you do not have this set up in your kitchen area, please make sure you get a hold of your OM or your DM to make sure you have one of these stations. What we're going to do is we're going to mix 1 packet per hopper. The bucket was provided by Stirasheen when you got your sanitizer and lube station. You're going to want to make sure this is mixed up really good. I'm doing this on the top of the machine because I'm rather tall and I can see what I'm doing. Also, I'm doing it up here because it's easier how I have the camera set up. You can do this at the sink, which 98% of you are going to end up doing. Again, remember, we're using cool water for this. We're never going to use hot water anywhere within the machines. We don't want the risk of the hot water interacting with the frozen barrels and causing them to crack. You're going to fill this water up to the ridge on the bucket. Then we're just going to pour this within our hopper. gonna do this for both sides, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the clean cycle again. But this time we're gonna let the clean cycle run completely out until it times itself out. The clean cycle does a timer of 5 minutes, then after those 5 minutes it will go down to 0. When it gets to 0, don't touch the machine. Let it continue to run its clean cycle. It will run for roughly another 1 to 3 minutes until it completely times out. When it times out, you'll see this on the screen. And after you see that on the screen, then you can dump your product. Okay, so I lowered the camera down further so it's a little easier for me to show you what's going on down here. Nothing really hardcore to show. But now that the time has exceeded, our cleaning cycle is now finished. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna drain out all this sanitizer. Now that we've got everything drained out of the machine, now it's going to be time to start disassembling the machine. Very simple and very easy. These 4 knobs we're going to turn and we're going to remove the front face of the machine. After we have this removed, we're going to take this over to the sink and we're going to set this into the sink. I'll show you more of what we're going to do with that here in a moment. We're also going to remove all the internals on the machine. Really simple as well. Make sure you're using both hands while doing this. We don't want to drop any of the flights on the floor or drop the auger assembly. This is rather heavy for some of you. It's only, you know what? I'm not too sure what the weight is on this. Why don't we do that right now and check. Now that we got our parts out of the machine, we're gonna be over here at the sink right now. You're not gonna see my face, but you're gonna see my lovely hands. Ooh. So what we got going on is we got the face right here. We're gonna, like I said before, we're gonna make sure we're really gentle with this. We're gonna be taking our stars off. And we're gonna be taking the plungers out. Now these are, for some of you, it's gonna be a little hard, but for others it's gonna be easy. Myself, I can just push them out with my thumbs like that. They come out pretty forceful, so be careful with that. Don't do what I just did. Another way you can do it, put it up against the side of your sink and gently push against it, and then they'll come out as such. And we're also going to remove these gaskets. The best and easiest way to remove the gaskets, I find, don't use your nails, don't use a knife, don't pry on them. That's going to rip and cause issues with your gaskets, and then you're going to have leakage in the future. Grab a cloth, your 2 fingers like this, like you got a claw going on, put them on both sides of the gasket, and just pinch and move. And then it'll come up as such. We're going to repeat that process when we get down to these. Grab them with your 2 fingers, squeeze, use your thumb, and push up. What we're going to do is we're going to do that with this one here. I'm going to do a little closer so you guys can see what I'm doing. And then it just rolls right up. We're going to do the same for all of them. And the reason we're doing that is because we got to make sure we're cleaning these properly. You're going to notice that you got a little bit of product down in there. The product that I took out of this machine is our s'mores. The s'mores is vanilla, chocolate yogurt, and graham cracker. So the graham cracker gets stuck into a lot of places where you wouldn't think it would, but it does, and we got to make sure it's cleaned as well. All right, so now that we've got those cleaned, we're going to move on to our acrylic face. We're going to want to make sure we use our brush, if I can find it in here. Ta-da. Going to use this on the inside of, on the inside there. Now you're gonna see every now and again, you're gonna see that you're gonna have residue from the lubricant that we put on the gaskets on the plungers. I'll show you that here in a little bit. We're gonna wanna make sure we get all that off. We wanna get these pretty much stripped all the way down, make sure they're perfectly clean and sanitized so it does not contaminate our product, and we have some of the best product for our customers. Again, we're going to be using our, if I can find it, we're going to be using our brush for our regulators, making sure they're cleaned out really good. Going to use the smaller brush here to make sure we get into our holes on the regulators. As you can see there, we've got if this would focus good, I don't know why that's having a hard time. Got a little bit of residue on there that was on the inside of the hole there. Now the regulator at first looked perfectly clean, but as you can see, once you get the brush in there, you're getting more debris and things out of it. Now you're going to see you got a lot of the old residue of lube up here. When we go to clean that off, don't use your dishcloth that you're using within the sink. Grab another rag that you're gonna just discard, or you're gonna put back into the, just grab another rag, because this stuff gets everywhere once it gets on there. I'm gonna remove the back gasket, make sure this is cleaned well. Then we're gonna get all of that old lube off of there, off of the back. When you clean these in the sink, make sure you're paying attention to your springs. We don't want to lose our springs. We don't want those going down the drain. Within the, on that instructional paper, it's going to tell you to unscrew the springs off of the flights and set these off to the side. Myself, I just keep them on there. I'm mindful on where they're at, and I'm paying attention to making sure that they're all on there. Now that we've got everything cleaned and sterilized, we're going to start the process of putting everything back together. We want to make sure that we're using our lube. This is also going to be in our sterilizing and lube center that we have on the wall. If you don't have the sanitizer and you don't have the lube, you're going to want to make sure that you get that, because that's the only way we can keep our machines clean. Another thing I need to tell you guys about is this paper I have over here that I have on my table. Each location should have one of these. This is another way of telling you how we sanitize, lube, and then re-sanitize our machines again. I already have these put back together. So what we're going to do is we're going to open a packet of lube, and we're going to put a little bit of lube on each one of these. Now, a little bit goes a long way. We're just going to put a tab on each one of those. Really small, not a lot. If you put too much lube on these, they actually tend to get a little sticky. It does the opposite effect of what you would think it would do. Just putting that around the gasket on there. This is our center one. You can tell it's center because it's larger than the other two, and it has that in there. grab our face. You're gonna line this up. You're gonna line that up with your post. And when you're pushing this in there, don't force it. Make sure you're paying attention to how the gaskets are on there. Sometimes they'll bow out a little bit, and then you don't want to pinch those when you're pushing this in. Now that we have the acrylic face all put back together and lubed up, we're going to move on to the main auger assembly. What we're going to want to do is we're going to make sure we put the gaskets back on. Those go on right there as such. We're going to want to grab our lube again. We're going to put a little bit of lube on there to make sure that our rear gasket spins freely on this. Get our flights put back on here. When you're putting these back on, you're going to notice that there's only one way they can go on. You have one small hole, one large one. You're going to have one large post, one small post. Pretty much a fail-safe, so you can't go wrong with it. Fail-safe. Jeez, can't talk today. After we get all that put back together, we're going to want to make sure we're putting lube on the end here. This is the main contact point with the machine, so we want to make sure we lube this up quite well. When you're putting the machine back together, you should be using 2 full packs of lubrication. And that should be 1 pack per side. Everything I've done here, we're going to repeat for the other side of the machine, and then we're going to put it all back in together. The one thing I did almost forget is on our stars, we're going to want to make sure that we're putting lube on our gaskets as well. These have to spin freely, and if they don't get lubed, you're going to notice you're going to start getting really bad ridges along the sides here, and that's not healthy for it at all. These are very important. When these start to wear down and your stars wear down, this is what holds your auger assembly within the barrel properly. When this all starts to wear down, it makes an oblong formation. And when it does that, it scars the inside of your barrel. Not healthy whatsoever, not good for the machine. And over time, if it wears that down too far and scars that too much on the inside, that machine has to be replaced. Okay, now that we have everything back in the machine, when you're putting the face back on the machine, make sure you're not forcing it. This should go on nice and evenly and smoothly. As you see here, the plungers have to line up with these that are attached to the handles. When sliding this on, it should go on nice and smoothly. If you notice it's getting caught up and it's not going on all the way, make sure these are lined up. And that's how it should go on. When putting your knobs on, you want to put these on here as if you're putting on lug nuts on a tire. You're not going to want to go down order to order, you want to go crossways. Now that we have this all put back together, we're going to add sanitizer to the machine one more time. 1 packet per side, and we're only going to let it run for 30 seconds. Now earlier I said we're only going to run the sanitizer through the machine after it's all cleaned for only 30 seconds. That's how I was taught. I went to a sweetFrog conference a couple of years ago, and the representative from Stoelting explained to us that if you run sanitizer on new lube longer than 30 seconds, it breaks that lube down, and then it's just not good, and it won't last as long for those 7 days until you go to clean your machine again. On the instructions that you have within your store, it says to run the sanitizer again for 5 minutes. I'm a little back and forth on that situation. Contact your DM to ask them what they suggest that you do. Now that the sanitizer is run for 30 seconds, we're gonna dump it all out. After we dump it out, you're not gonna rinse the machine. You're just gonna make sure all the sanitizer is out, and then you're gonna put your product back in, get it back to freezing, and then after it's fully frozen, you can turn it around and let it be ready for sale. I almost forgot to say, once you get the product back in there, make sure you're putting your regulator back in. And once you get your regulator put back in the machine, make sure you're putting the regulator at the corresponding number. Number 1 is for thin products, such as Dole. 2 and 3 are gonna be for your thicker products. Any regular Yo Cream yogurt, I put on number 2. If it's a mixture product like cookies and cream or the s'mores or anything that has multiple flavors within one hopper, I put in number 3. You guys have a good afternoon.